Hello everyone, this is Blake Temez again with the Blake Temez podcast, and I am going to be building off of the conversation in my last episode about internal family systems, or IFS, because systems are a concept that have wide applications beyond just the internal system of ourself and our parts. Most of my learning about systems and systems thinking has come from Donella Meadows' Thinking in Systems, a book, a resource that I highly recommend. And it's caused me to think about the way that systems exist in layers, that there's a hierarchy of systems, and the system that I mentioned yesterday, the internal family system, of your parts and yourself, act as a microcosm on that innermost level. But you can expand your perspective to see how your internal system is a subsystem within bigger social systems and networks of relationships and all those other things that build out into bigger and bigger macrocosms. So before going into examples of these different systems that each of us belongs to, I want to give a sense of what systems in general are made up of. And so if you think of a system, it has three essential parts. It has elements, it has interconnections, and it has a purpose. Elements, interconnections, and purpose. Now, the elements are those individual pieces, kind of like the parts in IFS. The interconnections are those relationships between the parts, and the purpose is what the overall system's behavior is producing, right? When you look at the system and see what it is actually doing, you're able to discern its purpose. Now, that last point about purpose being derived from observation is really important, because when you have a system, whether it's a political system or something in a smaller scale like a household system or a personal workflow system or whatever it might be, there could be a lot of stated intentions about what the system is intended to do, right? A politician could provide some type of vision statement, purpose statement about what their policies are aiming for, but then when you look at the behavior of the system that the policies were introduced into, you'll notice that the product is not reflected by the purpose statement really at all, oftentimes. To give you a clearer sense of what I mean by way of analogy, I want to think about the example of a kitchen, or a kitchen at a restaurant. So imagine that you go into a restaurant and you're really hoping to have some excellent pancakes for breakfast. So you put in your order for pancakes and you wait for your order to come out, and the waitress brings you a plate with a cheeseburger on it. Okay, so not a disaster, right? Still food, but it's not what you wanted. Now, let's say you send the food back, you say, no, I ordered pancakes, so there must have been some type of mix-up in the kitchen, and so the waitress takes the cheeseburger back, puts in another request for the pancakes that you ordered, and you wait, and she brings out another plate of food, and it's a cheeseburger once again. So you, deciding to be a little bit more assertive, take matters into your own hands, approach the kitchen, and ask the chef what's going on There's been a request for pancakes 2 times in a row now. But the chef insists that he is making pancakes, that's what the kitchen is made for, that it's has the supplies, it has the ingredients, and that what he is trying to do with the kitchen is make pancakes. But as you look around, you notice that the cooking utensils, the cooking implements, the ingredients that are available, that they all are actually ordered towards producing cheeseburgers, not producing pancakes, right? So hopefully you get the idea that in spite of the stated intention of the chef, maybe even the marquee on the restaurant outside said, "Get your pancakes here," that the elements within the restaurant, within the kitchen, and the relationships between those elements actually produce a different behavior than the stated one. So that can be really essential for evaluating systems, whether that's your internal system, right, involving your emotions and your physical sensations and your goals for your life, but also larger systems like your family, and then on up to your neighborhood, then your city, then various levels beyond that. So I bring this up because systems thinking will be a big part of the conversations that I have here on my podcast. I find that there are many systems that we would like to improve, again, personally or on a social level. And we can often be mistaken about why we're not getting the results that we want because we're misidentifying the elements or the relationships between the elements or the purpose of the system overall. And if we have a better understanding of why a system is doing what it's doing, then we have a better chance at making a positive change that will benefit us and others in the process. Now, Donella Meadows, again, the author of Thinking in Systems, made a kind of tongue-in-cheek but very helpful paraphrase of the Serenity Prayer that is popular from recovery programs. So if you're familiar with it, the prayer for serenity begins something like, "God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference." So that's the most famous 4 lines from the beginning of the Serenity Prayer. Now, Donella Meadows' paraphrase of that in her book is, "God, grant us the serenity to exercise our bounded rationality freely in the systems that are structured appropriately, the courage to restructure the systems that aren't, and the wisdom to know the difference." Right? So she's making a point here that when working with systems, there are aspects of them that we can control, and there are many other aspects that we're not in direct control of. And so when going about doing systems work, whether that's within yourself or with groups of people, you're going to want to observe the system to see what its behavior is revealing about its purpose. And you're also going to want to do an evaluation of what can realistically be manipulated and what things are outside of any one person's control to affect. And by approaching a system with that curiosity to understand its purpose and the humility to recognize that not every element is going to be manipulable by you, you can actually be quite more effective than if you were going straight in and expending a lot of effort touching different leverage points that are actually immovable or do not move in the direction that you want them to. So I hope that is helpful. Some of the conversations moving forward will be reflecting on these different instances of microsystems and macrosystems, and how when taken all together, they affect our lives as individuals and as families and as neighbors, and again, all those layers from the smallest all the way up to the top. So thank you for listening, for your time, for your attention, and I look forward to hearing from you. I understand that it's possible to comment on the podcast if you're listening on Spotify. This can also be found on other podcast hosting sites. But again, thank you very much, and God bless.